What's the first thing to know if you're just starting out in After Effects? With all the panels, options, and the immense variety of plugins available, it can be a bit overwhelming. Believe me, I understand, and we all have been there. In this series of videos, we will begin with the most essential element to master: the transform properties. These are the foundations of every After Effects animation, and by the end of the series, you'll feel confident enough to create your own animations. So, let's open After Effects and start with the position property. Click on New Composition or hit Ctrl-N on your keyboard to create a new comp. Give it a name. Mine will be Basic Transform Properties. Hit OK. We don't want a transparent composition, so go to Layer, New, Solid. I'll pick a blue color for my background and hide it from the timeline by hitting the Shy Guy button. Create a circle by going to the Shape Layer button and draw a circle shape by clicking and dragging on your composition. Extra points if you add a face to it using the pen tool. Leave a comment if you want to know how to draw shapes in After Effects tutorial. Since this is a beginner tutorial, we will be focused on the basic properties, specifically the position property. So change the workspace start and end points by dragging them to the 1 second and 4 second mark respectively. This will give us some wiggle room when we start to work with our keyframes. Once you do that, you can see the properties of your layer by expanding the transform options under your layer name in the timeline. This allows you to access and manipulate various properties such as position, rotation, scale, and opacity. For example, click on the stopwatch icon next to the position property on your timeline to set a new keyframe at the starting point. Keyframes are how we indicate to After Effects that we want to make a change at a specific point in time. And because we want to change the position, move the playhead to the 2 second mark on your timeline and move the shape by dragging it to the right side of the comp. And just like magic, After Effects will create the necessary frames between our keyframes to accurately represent the movement from left to right that we want to achieve. And voila! You just made your first After Effects animation. But wait, there's more. Delete the previous keyframes, right-click the position property and select the separate dimensions option from the context menu. This change will allow us to keyframe the X and Y positions independently of each other. Let's move our little body to the left side of the screen and add a keyframe on the Y position at the 1 second mark of the timeline. Then add a keyframe 20 frames after the first one. To quickly move along the timeline, press Ctrl Shift plus right arrow on your keyboard. This shortcut allows you to advance in increments of 10. Add a new keyframe and 3 additional keyframes after that one, ensuring there's a space of 10 frames between each one of them. This spacing will allow us to move our ball so that it appears to be bouncing on the ground. Next, we will select all the keyframes and drag them so that the first one aligns with the 1 second and 10 frames mark on our timeline. Then, we will add new keyframes on the space between the keyframes we just created, starting at the 1 second mark. Let's drag our shape up and repeat this slightly lower than the previous position for each of the new keyframes. These keyframes will represent the upward position of the ball to convey the bouncing motion. Since the position will be lower with each step, this conveys the idea that the bounce is losing strength after each rebound. You can either copy the first keyframe and paste it in the next space as I'm doing, or move the timeline and drag the shape down. Remember, as long as the stopwatch icon is blue, After Effects will automatically create keyframes whenever we change a property in our timeline. To preview the animation, simply press the spacebar. This action will create a temporary run preview, enabling you to see the results of your work before exporting. Once the progress bar at the top of the timeline panel is completely green, it indicates that the animation is fully stored in memory and ready for playback. And don't worry if your animation looks too robotic. We will fix that in the next step. Now that we set the keyframes for the Y movement, we can move our shape across the screen. We will use the same approach as before, but separating the position properties will give us a different result. Place a keyframe on the X position at the beginning of the timeline. Then move to the last frame and add a keyframe both on X and Y positions, and adjust your circle to the right side of the screen. Now, hit the spacebar on your keyboard to do a run preview of the animation, and watch the magic happen as the ball bounces across the screen. If you take a look at the motion path of the shape, you'll see that by adding just 2 keyframes for the X position, we allow After Effects to handle all the intermediate keyframes. This, combined with the independent movement of the Y position, creates the effect of the ball bouncing from left to right. To enhance the smoothness of the movement, we need to click on the graph editor in the timeline panel. Next, select the pen tool and add Bezier curves to all the high points on the Y-axis. This will create a more ease bouncing movement. Easing is a crucial aspect of animation, because in the real world, most movements do not follow a linear path. Instead, every movement involves curves and varying acceleration. Therefore, incorporating easing into our animation is essential for making movements appear more natural and realistic. You can refine the curves of your animation by dragging the handles of your Bezier curves in the graph editor. I wanted to demonstrate how to add more life to your animation by incorporating ease. Don't worry if you don't fully understand it yet. I will cover easing and the graph editor in more detail in future tutorials. Finally, let us give our little character a ground to bounce off by adding another shape layer just below the points where our bouncing ball reaches its lowest position. I know there's only 2 layers, but when working with more elements, this can build up quickly. Name that shape layer floor and place it below your ball layer in the timeline, just to keep things organized. Press the spacebar to preview your final animation. And congratulations, you just made your first animation in After Effects. I hope this tutorial helps you get started with After Effects animation. I'll be uploading the next part in the coming weeks. If you have any questions, please let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for future updates and follow me on social media. Links to my social accounts and newsletter will be in the description. Now, let's go and make those pixels dance. Peace.